Hi, it's Judy, and today I wanted to do just a slightly different video from the sort of videos that I've been doing of recently. Some of you who know me well will know that just recently I've lost quite a lot of weight, and I will insert photographs showing you my journey into this video once I work out how to do that. But I thought some people, because people keep asking me about it and it gets quite complicated, I thought if I could say to them, please go and look at my channel and have a look. There's a video up that explains everything and how I feel about it all and the whole thing. So, okay, let's start right back at the beginning. I've struggled with weight for most of my life. I was a very, very shapely 12-year-old and not overweight, just I was big busted. I had reasonable sized hips. I wasn't skinny. I've got a fairly large frame for my height, but I was never skinny. I was always heavier than everybody else that I knew. I studied dance. I went on to college and I studied full-time professional standard dance for 3 years, where I was dancing for 6 to 8 hours a day. And even then, at my thinnest, I was still bigger than everybody else in the classes. My thighs were always heavier. I found it painful to jump for long periods of time. It was just a struggle. So I got married while I was at college, and then I moved. After finishing college, we moved back to England because my husband is English, and I started working in IT, and life just progressed. And then when I was around about 30, so in about 1998, we decided that we would start trying for a family. It seemed about right. There'd been a whole bunch of things that had kicked off, and suddenly we discovered that getting pregnant wasn't as easy as everyone made it out to be, that if we hadn't spent all of that money in our 20s on contraception, we probably would have been fine. And it was a bit annoying, but that's the way life goes. So it took a while for us to realize that this was actually a problem that needed some help. And every doctor that I went to, every health professional just said, lose weight. You're not getting pregnant because you're fat. Lose weight. Some of them were a little more diplomatic than that. Some of them were not even that diplomatic. And it was quite a tough process to go through. So eventually I managed to get referred to Royal Berkshire Hospital, my local hospital, to speak to the fertility consultants. And again, their responses were lose weight. One of the consultants said, I can tell you've got polycystic ovary syndrome just by looking at you. If you lose weight, you'll solve the polycystic ovary syndrome and you'll get pregnant. He said, try anorexia. And I went, seriously? That's what you're suggesting? Particularly to somebody who is an ex-ballet dancer? Anyway, he didn't seem to get it. He thought he was joking, but it was kind of like, So anyway, we went and had some tests and we discovered that, yes, I have polycystic ovaries. I don't have polycystic ovary syndrome. Now, the difference is polycystic ovaries, you have cysts on your ovaries. Polycystic ovary syndrome, you also have a raised level of testosterone in your body. And it's worse to have polycystic ovary syndrome than it is to have polycystic ovaries. But it does make it difficult to get pregnant either way. So anyway, the stories continue, and in 2009, I'd gone through Weight Watchers. I'd spent a small fortune on Weight Watchers, and yes, I had lost some weight. And then at the beginning of 2009, I discovered that my dad was very ill, and he had terminal leukemia. And I decided that what I needed to be doing right at that moment was being with him and Mum and helping them through, doing whatever I could do for them to allow them to be able to spend as much time together as they could possibly manage, because they were each other's best friends. And so I flew back to Australia and for 2 months stayed in Australia, and I didn't worry about what I was eating. I just worried about mum and dad. And my weight went back up to 106 kilos. So I had to come home at the end of April to sort out some bits and pieces here. So I came back to England and spent about 5 weeks here, and then flew back to Australia at the beginning of June of 2009, and discovered a few days later that I was pregnant, which was really nice. And my dad was the first person to hear, mostly because I knew that my husband would be asleep and wouldn't really want to get that news at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I told Dad first because he was the only one up, and then I phoned my husband and told him. So we went through the first 17 weeks of pregnancy in Australia, and all the various tests that I underwent there. No one picked up on anything being untoward. And then I got back to the UK at 17 weeks. My dad had passed away on the 3rd of August. And on the 10th of August, I flew back to England and had my first appointment with my GP and my midwife the following day. And they said, right, well, there's a barrage of tests that we want you to do. They're just the standard ones that we get everybody to do. And they phoned me up the following day and said, you have gestational diabetes. We need to get you in and get you going on insulin quickly before any damage is done to the baby. So I was straight away put onto insulin, injecting once a day. And there were a few other bits and pieces, because I was classified as old and fat, and first time on it, everybody who could put me down. It was just, I don't know why they do that. But one of the scans when I went in, the consultant at RBH was doing the scan, and he was going on and on and on about how he couldn't get a good picture of the baby because there was so much fat in the way. And I remember saying to him, I'm really sorry, but apart from losing 5 stone in the next 3 minutes, is there anything I can do to help? Could I hold something out of the way for you? And he went, no. And I said, in that case, do you think you could please stop going on about how overweight I am? I know. And he kind of backed down. But every appointment that I went to, they made a big, huge fuss about how I was overweight and I had diabetes, and that meant I had to have an extra appointment with the anaesthetist. That was also because I was old. So now I've got the trifecta. So I'm old, I'm overweight, and now I have gestational diabetes. So they put me in for an appointment with the anaesthetist in case that I had to go under general anaesthetic during the birth. There were just so many various bits and pieces. Everything was always taken into account at every single appointment. So baby was due on I think it was the 28th of January, and she decided to come 3.5 weeks early. So she turned up on the 7th of January, and everything went as swimmingly as one ever does go through labour. There's a reason why they call it labour. It's really hard work. And she's beautiful, and about 48 hours after she was born, because my pancreas was no longer trying to produce insulin for 2, it kicked back in and I was fine. And it took her a little bit longer. It took her about 3 days for her sugars to go back to normal. So we were in the hospital for just on 7 days. But then we came over and everything was fine. Now, 12 months after you've given birth, if you've had gestational diabetes, they're supposed to do a test to check to see if your diabetes is returned. I was missed. I don't know why I was missed, but that test never happened. So in January 2012, when I went in for my MOT, as I like to call it, they did a whole bunch of the standard tests, and the following day my doctor phoned me in a bit of a panic and said, your blood sugars are very high, we need to get you in and get you started on medication. And by very high, he meant 17, which is the old measurement. I went in and that began my journey on metformin, which is the standard drug that is given to type 2 diabetics. And at first I was started on a low dose. It was 500 milligrams twice a day. And that seemed to work for quite a while. And then in 2015, I went home to visit Australia. And while I was there, I was feeling tired and run down and lethargic. And I just thought, to start off with jet lag and then running around after a 5-year-old and helping my mum out and doing all of the things that you try to cram in when you've got to visit home. And so I came back to the UK and went and saw my diabetic nurse, and she said, okay, your sugars have gone back up again. And they increased my medication to 2,000 milligrams a day, so 1,000 milligrams twice a day, which I understand is the maximum dose that they will put you on. And my sugars came down, but they didn't come down far enough. They came down to around about 13. So she said, okay, well, we're going to have to put you on insulin. And they looked at the various other drugs, but because we are still trying to get pregnant to have a second child, a lot of the other medications that are available for type 2s are counter, whatever the word is, for pregnancy. And they didn't want to risk. But they said insulin's safe, so they put me on insulin. And I've been on insulin, 1 injection per day. It got up to, at the worst, it got up to 52 units per day in order to keep it all under control. And just towards the end, where the story will progress, I was coming down to 36 units a day. So things were improving. I was losing weight. I slipped a disc in October last year, so that's October 2016, and was bedridden for about 4 weeks and then housebound for about another 3 weeks because I just couldn't move. So with lots of help, I had lots of friends who were helping out, but I just couldn't get going. So all the way through all of this, everybody has always said, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. So I have managed at various times to lose weight. I've been to Weight Watchers and I got down to, I think it was 86 kilos. With the NHS, I got back down to 88 kilos after having gone back up again. I've always done this fluctuating. But there's never ever been anything that's felt like it could be a permanent solution. So I had kind of resigned myself to being on a drug journey for the rest of my life. And I was well aware that there are side effects of diabetes that can affect your life. There's an increased chance of heart disease. There's cholesterol goes up. There's all sorts of various different things that happen when you have diabetes, particularly, type 2 diabetes. So in probably October of last year, I managed to get a referral for a gastric bypass, which I thought was brilliant. And then I started doing some research into it and realized it's actually quite a significant piece of surgery to undergo. And I was a bit uncertain about the idea of doing that, particularly since we are still trying to get pregnant. So if I get pregnant, then what happens to the bypass at that point? So anyway, fast forward to beginning of February this year, 2017, a recently diagnosed friend of mine mentioned the Newcastle University diet. So I went and had a look, and there was some stuff going on up in Newcastle where they were working with bariatric patients who were about to undergo bariatric surgery, both bypasses and gastric bands. And part of the prerequisite for going on these programs was that they prove that they'd be able to lose weight. And they did this by doing a food replacement diet. And somebody noticed that there were a number of people on the program who were essentially reversing their type 2 diabetes just by being on the program. And there was a question, is it the bariatric surgery that's doing this, or is this the diet that's doing it? And when it comes down to it, ultimately what's doing it is the weight loss. But bariatric surgery is expensive, and so they were looking into ways that they could help people to lose weight quickly, efficiently, not put it back on, and not have to undergo bariatric surgery. And then another company picked up on this and started working with the Cambridge diet people to develop a new product that would allow people. I had been advised to not undergo the Cambridge diet or Lighter Life or any of those because of the diabetes. So we've kind of been between a rock and a hard place. You want me to lose weight, but I can't go on any of these extreme diets. I've got to do it slowly and painfully. And I'm kind of an immediate results. Tell me what's going on now. I want to be able to see it every day. So I went back to my diabetic nurse and I said, I've been heard about this Newcastle University diet. If I were to do some research and find out about it, would you support me through this? And she said, well, hang on a second, let's have a look. She said, give me 24 hours. Following day, she phoned me up and she said, Royal Berkshire Hospital is undergoing a pilot. It's the second of 2 pilots to see if this sort of food replacement diet works on a group basis, and you're eligible to be on it. So I need you to get into Reading quickly and get yourself assessed to go on the diet. So I met with the consultant and they took all my measurements and various other bits and pieces and took some blood and the whole lot and said, yes, we can put you on this. Technically, I shouldn't, it was borderline because I was on insulin and they were only testing people who weren't on insulin, but also I had my diabetes under control. And again, they weren't sure that they could put someone who was controlling it so well on the diet. And I kind of almost got down on my knees and begged. So on the 22nd of February, we had our first meeting and they said, right, tomorrow, stop your medication, go on the diet. So on the 23rd of February, and I'm going to put out some figures here, and this is me being blatantly honest, this is what I weighed. I started this diet at 105.7 kilos. I will allow you who are working in pounds and stone to work out how much that is, but believe me, it's not healthy. And the first 3 days were painful. Now I'm just going to show you. This is the diet that I was following. This is called Counterweight Pro 800, and there are 6 different flavors, although I discovered very quickly that 2 of them I detest. Absolutely. The summer fruits and the banana just don't go down for me. So, but I like the chocolate and the vanilla, and I can adjust them. And the soups are okay too, and I can adjust those. So I started on this diet on the 23rd of February, and since then I have lost, today is now the 25th of May, and I have lost 15.6 kilos. So my weight now is 90.1 kilos, for those of you who can't do the math. And I have not taken any metformin or insulin since the 23rd of February of 2017. So the food replacement bit was 4 soups or shakes per day, 4 of these, 2.5 litres of water, no calorie drinks as much as I liked, and up to 50 mils of skimmed milk, to equate to around about 800 to 850 calories per day. And they said to us, if you're doing any exercise at the moment, then maintain it, but don't take up anything new. Of course, I had thrown my back out, so I wasn't doing any exercise. So they said, don't take up anything new. So last week on the 17th, we finished the food replacement bit. And from the 18th of May last week, I started on the food replacement phase. Now, the food replacement phase is where I go from 800 calories a day to 1,000 calories a day. Still not a huge leap, but it is a leap. The biggest leap in is that I go from 4 soups and shakes per day to 2 of them. And then one meal that is between 360 and 400 calories, plus 2 pieces of fruit and up to 200 mils of skimmed milk in coffee and tea and whatever. So that's where we are at the moment. I'm doing things a little bit differently because I'm not a huge fan of fruit. So I'm replacing the 2 pieces of fruit with as much vegetable as I can possibly fit in. So that means that I'm having between 7 and 9 servings of vegetable with my meal. And boy, does that take a lot of work. I'm being a little careful about how much carbohydrate I fit in to that meal because I figure I'm actually getting carbohydrate in the shakes. The shakes will keep you nutritionally balanced, basically, and they advise you to not take any supplements while you're going through the shakes phase, regardless of how many shakes it is a day, because there are certain vitamins that you can overdose on. So they also advise you to keep a diary. So I'm keeping a diary here, and this is where I write down every day what I've eaten, what my bloods were like, when I weigh myself, what my measurements are, how I'm feeling about it, any walking that I'm doing, or any exercise that I'm doing. So, yesterday my entry says that, it was my birthday. I indulged a little because I had some chocolate, but it was my birthday. Hey. And I'm finding that there are various things that I can do when I'm out and about. To start off with, the shakes and soups were a pain in the butt. But then I discovered that places like IKEA and John Lewis and Sainsbury's will, when they offer you a cup of hot water for something, it measures out 200 mils, which is exactly the amount that you need for your soups to mix them up with. Starbucks was a bit iffy about giving me hot water until I explained that it was because I was on a restricted diet, and at which point they went, okay, as long as because they won't give hot water to mothers to warm bottles with because they don't want the babies being burnt with boiling water. McDonald's refused flatly to give me hot water. They gave me water from the tap, but not boiling water. So I simply just bought a cup of tea and asked them to put the tea bag on the side. And once I poured out the 200 mils that I needed for my soup, I put the tea bag back in, swished it round, and there I had half a cup of tea as well. Okay, don't understand that one. Going on to food replacement has been difficult because everywhere, particularly since I've chosen that lunch is my meal of the day, everywhere serves up lots of carbohydrate and not a huge amount of vegetable. But there are things that I'm finding that I can do. It's costing me a bit more, so if I go to IKEA for lunch, I can get the veggie balls rather than the meatballs, and I get the wheat pilaf, which has got extra vegetable in it, and then I get a side salad. So I then pay an extra £2.25 for the side salad, but you know what? Sometimes it's worth spending a bit more money on it to be a bit healthier. All of my friends have been very wonderful and very accommodating. No one's been nasty or horrible about this. So for the people out there who are struggling with their type 2 in the UK, the hope is that at the end of this program that we will have proved to the NHS that it is possible for people to lose weight on this program and keep it off, and that it is cheaper for the NHS to support people through this program than it is to continue to give them drugs and treat their symptoms that keep occurring because they're still on drugs that cause all sorts of lovely side effects. Those of you who have lived on metformin will know that it is not a walk in the park. It is not a fun drug to be on, simply because, well, to be blunt and honest, you have to clock where the loos are everywhere you go. It's like having a blender in your system the whole time. Aside from that, the being overweight hurts. It's painful. The knee replacements, the hip replacements, the circulation issues, the heart troubles, the so many things that go wrong with your system because of diabetes and because of being overweight So my advice to you is go and talk to your diabetic nurse. Tell her about the Counterweight program. If you're very keen and you've got the finances to do it, you can do the Counterweight program through a Counterweight practitioner. So search Counterweight on the internet and get in touch with a local practitioner. I believe it's something like you pay them a monthly fee for being your consultant, and then you buy the soups and shakes. So and the soups and shakes are around about £50 a month. £50 a week. It's not a cheap program, but do take into account that you won't be buying a huge amount of food throughout the time that you're doing the food replacement. And then once you're off the food replacement, you've changed the way that you eat, and you will be eating more healthily. At least that's what I'm finding. I'm paying more attention to the food that I'm eating. I've also managed to get myself for my birthday a Bella Beat leaf, which is the kind of jewelry equivalent of a Fitbit, and that goes everywhere with me, and that's monitoring my sleep patterns and monitoring my walking. So things are better on that front. I'm feeling healthier. Everyone tells me I keep looking healthier, and I'm about to run out of storage space on my computer, so I better finish this up. Thank you so much for spending the time with me and listening to me ramble on about this. I hope I've been helpful for you. And if there's any questions that you have, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll be certain to get back to you. If you don't manage to do this, then good luck on your journey, and I hope it works out for you too. It's been lovely to spend time with you, and I wish you good health and happiness. Bye.